Hello everyone and welcome to today's presentation, Why OpenRoads Designer for Collaboration. You know, I've been around technology and the transportation industry for quite a long time, not quite as long as these two guys in this picture right here, but I've seen a technology make a lot of changes since the late 80s. And not only the technology has changed, but the makeup of our engineering teams have changed, of course, as well. But one thing that has not changed from, and say, the past 75 years is this need for collaboration. Whether you're building a road, whether you're building a bridge or a Walmart, or as I am right now, building a house, we have to collaborate with one another. We need to exchange ideas. We need to ask and answer questions. We need to share information with one another. Now, CAD and design applications in general have done a lot over the years to facilitate collaboration. Let me give you a couple of examples. Let's take, for example, reference files. Just the ability for different disciplines to work in different files and then be able to reference those together to see how our data fits, whether something is out of place, whether something can actually be built. That functionality is incredibly conducive to collaboration. OpenRoads has taken that a little bit further with the ability to partition data. For example, you got a 10-mile corridor and you want to break that up into 2-mile sections and let Team 1 work on Section A, Team 2 on Section B, and so on. And then, of course, you can just reference those all together, cut cross sections, do your visualization, run your quantities. Again, highly conducive to collaboration. And then, of course, we can't forget ProjectWise, which allows us to manage that information and make sure that we have that single source of truth. So a lot has changed in technology over the last 75 years, but there's one thing that really has changed very little. And that is in the area of design review. The fact is, it's what I call the red line dilemma. And the fact is that even though we have all this digital information available at our fingertips, the vast majority of design reviews or project reviews are still being done with paper or PDF plans. Now, we all know this tends to be fairly problematic, and there's some pain points. For example, it's inefficient. The idea that I've got all this data over here at my hands and I have to create plan sheets just for review purposes is just inefficient. At the same time, it's very limiting. When I create a plan sheet or a cross section, for example, it's a snapshot in time. If I'm missing a piece of information, there's nothing I can do. I have to go back to the digital information. So it's very limiting. And of course, it's prone to error. Do things get followed up on? If I have an issue, was that issue email? Did that person take care of that issue? If I modified a profile, did all the appropriate teams and disciplines get notified correctly? So again, a lot of issues there. So we haven't made a whole lot of progress, and there's different reasons for why. Part of it is just because it's what we've always done, and change is of course hard. But there are legitimate issues. For example, let's say I'm a reviewer. I may not be familiar with your project or where your project is or how your project is broken up or federated or whatever the case may be. So without paper, how do I find the right information? How do I know the information I have is the latest and greatest? You may be asking me to do a digital review, but I may not be a skilled CAD user. How am I going to do that? At the end of the day, I've got a lot of questions about, okay, without paper, how do we collaborate? Well, the way we're going to solve this problem is the way we solve all problems when it comes to technology, is we're going to innovate. And on the Bentley side, what we're innovating with is the use of something we call an I-twin. Now, an I-twin by definition is a digital representation of a physical asset or a process or a system. And just to put it straight though, for us, it's really a representation of our project. So on the left, you can see my project in OpenRoads Designer with all the different disciplines. I've got utilities, I've got drainage, I've got a site design, I've got 2 bridges. That's in OpenRoads Designer. Over on the right is my digital twin or my iTwin. Everything there is there that I need, but it's not my original data. It's what's called an iTwin. So let's take a look at how this use of the iTwin would work in a design review process. Now, there are 2 workflows that we're going to look at. One is called an ad hoc workflow, and the other is called a digital twin workflow. Now, there's going to a few things I want to point out about the ad hoc workflow, and we'll go through each one of them individually. It's cloud-based. It provides a quick review of a design work in progress. You can do it from a browser, or you can do it from inside your design application. You can work in a 2D environment, a 3D environment, or a combination of both. And it's purpose-built for doing the types of reviews that you need to do. So let's take a look at these individually. Let's start with the very fact that it's cloud-based. Now, why is that important? Because we need our information to be available to anyone at any time. We may not all be in the same office. We may not be in the same city or the same country. We need this data accessible to all of us. So let's take a look at how this works. So here I am in my connection center, and I've got a series of connected projects that I am a member of. So I'm going to select this Highway 72, which is my project. There's all my team members from my organization, but notice also I can invite people from external organizations as well. So we don't all have to be within the same company or the same agency. Now, within this connected project, I have something called iModels or iTwins that I've created. And again, I'm going to pop in here and take a look at one of them very quickly. But the point here is that this is available to everybody. It's in the cloud. It's web-based. I can always know that I've got the latest version, and everybody has got access to this iTwin or this particular iModel. Now, what is this ad hoc workflow set up for? If I need to do a quick review of a design work in progress, I don't want to have to go out and produce plans or produce artifacts of any kind, to be quite honest. I just want to be able to initiate reviews directly from my design application. And this is exactly what we can do. So here I am inside of OpenRoads Designer. And I've got a project here, and I'm going to click my comment icon. And what it's going to do is it's going to kick off iTwin Design Review from directly inside of OpenRoads Designer. Now, I can access a previously created session, or I can create a new one. So let's say, for example, my project manager says to me, hey, I'd like to take a look at your project and kind of see where you are and review a few things. So I'm going to create a new session called London Road Review. I'm going to add Taylor Gilmore, who is my project manager, and I'm going to create a session. And you can see that it's out there and it's ready to go. Now, when I added Taylor to my session, it automatically generated him an email. And it says, hey, Taylor, you've been invited to this London Road review. And he can access that directly from his email, or he can directly access it, as you see here, from a browser. Okay, so we've all got access to this information. Now, let's talk a little bit about the browser or in-app. As you just saw, I kicked off the session from inside the application. Taylor actually accessed it from a browser. So the idea here is you can collaborate without the need to install any additional software. If you've got OpenRoads Designer or if you've got MicroStation and you want to use those, that's great. If you don't have them or you just want to use a browser, you can access it through a browser. So let's go back to Taylor. Here's Taylor. He gets my email. He clicks on the link in the email, and it opens up him in a review session in his browser. Now, inside this browser, he's got access to a lot of different types of information, and we'll go into this in detail in a little bit. And one of the things that he has access to is my profile, so he can look at a profile in particular area. So let's say that Taylor says, you know what, I've got a concern that we're in a sag curve underneath this overpass, so he wants to create a comment. So he's going to create a comment, and he'll just call it a drainage issue. and he'll set the discipline. And again, we'll come back later and talk a little bit about some of these things. But notice he's going to say at Derricke, and he's going to say, hey, Derricke, I need you to look at this drainage under the bridge. It's a concern, right? So he has added a comment to this ad hoc review session. Well, when he does, it generates an email to me and lets me know that he has mentioned me in a comment. So let's say that I'm over here and maybe again, other side of the building. Could be in a different city or a different country. I'm working and my email pops up and says, hey, you got a comment. I said, I wonder what Taylor is doing. So I just go back into my in-app design review and I can say, hey, let me go see what he's talking about. So I just open the last session. I can see his comment right there. I just click on it. He's got a picture right there of the area where it is, and I can look at his comment. Now the nice thing about this is I'm in my design application. So I can literally go in right here and begin to and check it out and say, I wonder, is he right, or do I need to make a change? So I'm gonna select that alignment. I'm gonna open a profile. And you can see here I've actually got my bridge superimposed on my profile so I can see exactly where it is, and I can say, you know what, he's right. I've got a sag curve there. I'm going to have to deal with the water underneath that overpass right there. And so I'm just, at this point, I'm going to come back in and say, again, I'm going to use @Taylor and just send a comment and say, you know what, you're right. I reviewed it. I'll get with the drainage engineer. We'll figure out a way to handle that water, and I'll get back with you a little bit later. Now, notice when he created the comment, the status was set to new. I'm going to go in and change that status to checked. I'm not going to close it out yet, but I want him to know that I did go in and check that, and so you can kind of see how the process works, right? Somebody may check it, somebody may verify it, somebody may close this out. But the idea here is we've got an ongoing session, nothing's falling through the cracks, and our comments are getting recorded. All right. Let's talk a little bit about 2D and 3D environments. A lot of times when we've been thinking about models and we talk about design review, we think about 3D, and that's perfectly legitimate. But we don't want to forget that it's also 2D as well. And so when you actually create an iTwin, it can have just 2D data only, it could have just 3D data only, or it could have any combination of both. The nice thing about design review is it allows me to very quickly and easily turn off one or the other just based on whether it's 2D or 3D. So here I've turned off my 3D. And I may want to come in here and do some work in 2D. So for example, I may want to come in here and measure a distance or an area or something like that. I may want to come in and calculate a station and offset. So I can just identify the alignment and come in here and say, I wonder what the station and offset of that head wall is right there. Or I may want to come in here and let's say I want to look at the properties for this culvert. Get the inverts, the start and stop invert, as well as the size of that culvert. Or maybe I want to cut a cross section. So what I'm going to do here is turn off the 2D, and then I'm going to turn on the 3D. Now notice with the 3D I have to zoom out a little bit because it's up top at the proper elevation. So here I am in 3D, so I'm going to come in here and go to my reality data and turn off my aerial. And maybe I want to look at something here. Maybe I can see it better if I go to a wireframe mode, and maybe I want to look at it from there. Maybe I want to come over and cut it. I want to do a cross section, okay? And so I'm going to turn on my snap mode here, and I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to snap to the end of that head wall there. And then I'm just going to move up and I'm going to snap to the other end of that as well. And then I want to cut a cross section. So just by putting a data point, it automatically cuts my cross section, and I can see the two structures as well as that crossing culvert there as well. Or maybe I just want to navigate around and have a little fun in 3D and look at it in a different perspective. So again, I can just rotate that up. I can look at that culvert from underneath and see how all that fits and works. And again, a lot of flexibility here that we have because we can work in both views. The other thing about design review and the ad hoc workflow is that it's purpose built. we understand when you're doing civil reviews that there's certain types of things that you need access to, certain types of things that you need to do, and design review tools give that to you. So let's take a look here. Notice one of the things you have access to is your existing file structure. So even though this is an iTwin, I can still go in and turn off model data from different disciplines. I can go in and select an alignment, for example, and get data on that alignment. I can get graphical data. I can go over to the properties window and see different information about it inside the properties window. I may want to do some other things. Let's say, for example, we've already seen the cross section, 2 points. Let's look at a cross section perpendicular. So I can select an alignment and say I want to cut a cross section perpendicular at that particular alignment, and it does that for me. I may want to come in here and move that, and this is key because we're not showing you cross sections that came over from ORD. We're cutting these on the fly from a browser. And so here I've just gone to another area. Maybe I want to measure some distances in my cross section. So you can measure in the plan view, or you can measure in the cross section view. Notice it's giving me the runs and rises. It's giving me the slopes. It's giving me other information about that on the fly. We can also, as we saw earlier, we can look at profiles for any piece of geometry that we have as well. So again, a lot of information here that it's given us that as civil engineers that we need. Another thing it does is giving us access to business information. So for example, here's a pipe, and I can just select that pipe, and all of the engineering content for that pipe comes over as data. So you can see it's just a preponderance of information there about your pipes, your inlets. A lot of this is automatically populated just because it's contained within the engineering data, but you can also add your own customized data and have those come over to the iTwin as well. Finally, we've just added a couple of new things, the ability to do reports off the iTwin as well. So notice here I can select alignment. I can get a vertical alignment or vertical geometry report from that alignment. I can come back over here. I can do a horizontal alignment report. So I'm just going to select that alignment again, and it's going to generate a horizontal alignment review report. One of the neat things about this is that you can actually select an element in the report. For example, you can a circular curve or a tangential element, and it'll actually zoom to that location in the iTwin and show it to you. You can open this in a new tab in your browser, and so from here you could take this out, of course, to other formats and stuff as well. Another thing that we allow you to do now is to calculate quantity reports. So you got different types of options. I'm just going to do from a polygon. So I can actually come out here and say, hey, I'm just going to put a shape out here, and everything within that shape, I want you to calculate the quantities for me. And so you can get a quantity report by area. Again, this is coming directly from the iTwin. And as we saw with the geometry reports, you can open these up in a different browser as well. Now, that is the ad hoc workflow. There's a second workflow called the digital twin workflow. Now, the digital twin, remember the ad hoc, you get all of that stuff, but it's really about kind of these one-offs, right? You get all of that with digital twin. The difference with digital twin is really two things. Number one, it's more geared toward a project level design review. And the main thing that's really different with it is you get an accountable record of who changed what and when. So let's talk about that accountable record. So what it allows us to do, you don't think of the iTwin because it's not a single snapshot in time. It's an upgradable, it's a database that we can continue to add to. And what it allows us to do is create named versions and track who changed what and when, and then we can do different things with that information. So let me give an example of how this works in another way. So here I'm going to go to, and I've got a project. I'm going to go open up something called iTwin Synchronizer. An iTwin Synchronizer allows me to create an iTwin up in the cloud in what's called the iModel Hub. Because I'm already logged in as Derricke Gray, it knows what projects I have access to. And so it lists them. And so I'm going to choose a project, and I'm going to create a new synchronization. In my case, it's called State Road 97. And I'm going to link that or map that to an iModel that I previously created up in the cloud. And what it does, it's going to go out. It's going to make sure everything's ready to go, and it's going to create a synchronization. Now, the nice thing about this synchronization is once you've created it, it stays with the project. So it'll always be available to me. Anytime I want to push changes, I just click on that synchronization button. And so I can add comments. So this is the original iModel that I'm creating. So I'm just going to go ahead and say synchronize. Now what it's doing is it's taking all of my reference files, my bridges, my utilities, my drainage, my site, my road, all of that. It's correlating into a single iModel or a single iTwin. Once I'm done, I can say go to the iModel, and what it will do is it'll take me out to the to my iModel manager. And then I can say, okay, well, let's go view this iModel, right? And we can go in and we can review the iModel and take a look at it. And so here we go, and it's bringing it up. And notice I've got, it says, yeah, you got the latest version. I'll just say go in and enter the iModel, and it allows me to look at it. And there it goes, right? Now, so again, that's another way to create the iModel. Which is, again, it has this synchronization that anytime I want to, now I can go update the iModel. So let me show you. So here's the iModel, right? So let's say I'm in the iModel and I've got a little issue right there. You can kind of see my cut slope is coming up into my abutment right there, and so let's say I want to change that, right? So I'm going to go back to OpenRoads Designer. That's my iModel. And of course, in OpenRoads Designer, it looks exactly the same as it should. I'm going to make a change. So I'm just going to change this cut slope and say, okay, I'm going to let it reprocess my corridor, and you'll see my 3D model updates on the fly right now. I've made the change. Now I want to push that to the iModel. All right, so I just go back to my project here, London Road. And what I'm going to do, it remembers the synchronization. All I got to do is push the button. And what it'll do is it'll take that change that I made and it'll push it up to the iModel. And I can put in a comment, side slope change. And it creates what's called a named version. And so it keeps a track record, if you will, of who changed what they did, and when they did it. So I'm going to say, okay, well, let's go back to the iModel, and you can see there's my change record right there. And of course, I can go in and view the iModel, and we'll see that the iModel has been updated with the new changes. Okay, so that's what's different about the iTwin design. It actually allows you to create this. This ongoing record. The final thing about this is the iTwin design review is really workflow is really set up to do project level design reviews, where the ad hoc is more kind of a one-off. I want to kind of collaborate with my team or whatever. There comes a point where you're ready to do a project level design review, right? And you want to collaborate among disciplines. This is really what this is about. So let's go back in and take a look at some of the things. Now, as I mentioned earlier, and I think this is important, it maintains your file structure. So for example, my base map is all of my site data. I can turn that off and on, right? So I've still got the ability to, and what this allows me to do is create save views for different disciplines. So for example, I could come in here and say I could create one just for the site design, and it would just have the site design on. Or I could go in and say I just want to create one for the 3D bridge, and it would create one. So again, we can set this up so every discipline has access to their own information. And then of course the power here is this ability for everybody to comment. So you can see here we've got a review going on. We've got different things. I can click on a comment. There's the comment. If I want to go to the view where that comment was saved, I can just say go to save view, and there it is. I can also go the other way. I can click on the little number in the view, and it'll take me to the appropriate comment over there. Notice that you can filter by status, for example. So I can say, well, show me all the ones that are closed, right? And it'll show me both graphically and in my list. I can filter on discipline and say, well, show me all the drainage issues. And it'll show me the drainage issues, the ones that are assigned to that particular that particular discipline. Or I can say, show me all the bridge issues, and it will, it'll show me the bridge issues, and I can go in there. Again, this is all customizable. The status, you can, set them up according to how your organization works. You can change that, and then of course notice how it changes the color over in the graphics. You can also, the nice thing is everything that's done is being tracked and can be exported out to a spreadsheet at any time. So it's going to remember who did what, when they did it, what the message was, when the status was changed. So it creates this kind of a record of what we've been doing. Now, I began this presentation with a picture of a few people sitting around a conference table, right, and talking about collaboration. But let's be honest, in the last year, that's not normally the picture of collaboration anymore, is it? This is the picture of collaboration. Someone sitting in their kitchen, someone sitting in their bedroom, right? Now, I don't know if this is the new normal, but whether the point is this, whether you decide that you want to move to digital collaboration, even when you're back in the office, or you want to be able to move to digital collaboration because we've got these federated teams working at home. Whatever the reason, whatever the timeline, I hope this presentation shows you that OpenRoads can get you there. With that, thank you for joining, and have a great day.